Good evening, everyone. We're going to make some simple stuff tonight. First off, we got to sharpen a couple tools. We're going to make some ice cream scoops. So we're going to start out by a little kind of warm-up practice kind of a thing first. Make a little mushroom. Only takes a couple of minutes. Our half-inch spindle job. A little bit more of the heel. A little tighter places. Half-inch bowl gouge. So, we'll do a mushroom. We're going to start between centers. All right, there we go. That's that. Things freeze up on me already. Um, kind of, I'm going to mark a sort of a geographic center on this. Just make it a little easier. Don't need my watch. Don't need shower curtain closed down. Just gives me a sort of a starting point. These little tree branches is really what this is, so they're not round, but I have an idea where the center point's at. Usually makes it maybe a little bit easier. So we'll just sort of jam that in on what would be the center point. Firm hole there, bigger one there. So we'll leave the bigger one to the bottom. That'll be waste down there anyhow. And then we'll just bring the point in just enough to hold it in place. A little smaller tool rest will do better. That's nice. Jam that piece in the bottom. Left a chip hanging right over the edge of that. I won't let the tool rest go down in here very well. So the base of our mushroom will probably be down around about there. So if I use my finger, high point, where was my low point is there. So if I just move it over a little bit in that direction, check it one more time. That got a little bit closer, close enough for what we're doing. Camera's in the wrong place too. Get over a little bit. Okay. All right, you handle. As always, we'll start out nice and slow, standing off to the side. Everything's tight. And we bring up our speed. And this being cedar, the bark is most likely not going to stay on. So we'll get it round down here, somewhat round. We're also going to need a tenant down here. This way I can get it into the chuck nice and quick like. Should have looked at more material there, less material there. We'll move it one more time and we'll just reestablish this tenon so it's in the right place. And we'll just go right to the chuck. And we'll live with it from there. This is the VM100 chuck, standard jaws. Right now we will use the live center. We're just going to remove the point. I don't need that trying to find its own little home. So if I get rid of the point and just use the outside ring, and give it just a little bit of support, just for a little bit. Turn it on, bring the tailstock up while it's running. That way it will find its center point, or what it likes to be. And then we'll go from there. The rest is, let's put us a little low. Does look like it had some little bit of bug action going on there. And just screw it up a little bit so it can make a shape. See what these bugs are doing. All over the place. Yeah. It looks a little long. Leave a little support there to the very end, or close to the end. Yeah. Made any mushrooms anywhere. It kind of doesn't look right, but no two mushrooms are alike, so it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Here's the bark. At least get rid of some of it. One thing about cedar, it is very aromatic. This is a red cedar, so I think our bark rim is just a little bit too big for me. My liking. I kind of go slow right there because it's still uneven. I'll switch over to the spindle gouge. We'll cut this corner off just a little bit, just so there's nothing sharp. And then we'll undercut it a bit. It's a little on the fat and doppy side. Nice little light cuts because now we don't have support. Tailstock already stopped spinning. This is also one of these projects where you practice your tool control and all that good stuff, and then you don't have to trim that back a little bit more. No sanding. I don't sand these at all. I don't really liking this top, but it's probably should have did that before. So I'm sure I can't go back up here and cut. At least not very well. Gonna chatter like crazy. See whether it's leaving marks or just making noise. Probably don't making marks. Maybe not. Yeah, there's chatter marks in there. It may not have been a great idea. I mean, switch over to a smaller spindle gouge. Put less pressure on it. It's making noise, but it's not. Doesn't feel like it's leaving marks behind. Where is it? Yes, it is. So just add a little pressure, tailstock pressure. See if we can get away from that. And that's all it takes. Just a little bit of pressure. Now we can do just this last little bit. Take a little bit more off of this. Just make it go in a little bit straighter than what I did the first time. Still didn't touch that edge. I think we're just going to leave that alone now. The top's done. Looks like it's still rather fat. I think that'll work. Get rid of some of that with a parting tool. Always pays to step back and take a look. My curve is not quite where it should be. I think that'll work. Really like to cut it off with the gouge rather than a parting tool, so I get a nice clean bottom. No, I know what I need. I need a longer one with a longer grind. Got a real long grind on this one, so it will let me get in there. I think. Maybe not. There's some more of that. Little bites. Now this thing is going to definitely gonna want to flop off quickly. You need to get your finger there quick enough. I left a tiny little nub in the middle. That will stand off. There you go. Simple little mushroom. Good kind of warm-up exercise, I guess you'd call it. I don't normally put any finish on them. I could have put some beeswax or something on it, but it is cedar, so I'll just let it go. I'll leave the aromatic part there. Just sort of something simple like that, just to get my brain in action as to what we're supposed to be doing or should be doing. So that way, when we go to something more important, then our brains may be doing what it should be doing. The project will go back to centers. Actually, I have two of these to do. These will be handles for ice cream scoop. I'll need the cone center and the lathe center. These have already been drilled and tapped because the ones I use require a drill and tap. Do need a center point though. There. Because these are kind of a bit of messing around to get these sort of where you want them. Because we'll have to put a shoulder on down here eventually. As always, you start off slow, bring the speed up to whatever you're comfortable at. These will be pretty quick. Use the bowl gouge to get rid of the corners. Corners go away. Tool rest is back quite a ways. Still have about 1/8 of an inch or so. And just go back along. Do the same thing all over. Basically little straight in cuts. You don't want to be real aggressive with this, because like I say, the curly in the curly wood is never real friendly when it comes to that. Still not quite there. You can sort of use the bowl gouge almost like a skew. It'll give you almost as clean of a cut. And here's the issues with the curly wood. Right there, some places where it's picking the grain up, so it's wanting to be cut in that direction right there, or at least be more gentle. Put it that way. So now I'm gonna get one of these kits that can mark the tenon for the. These have a ferrule on them. We can set our dimensions inside the ferrule. Tight. Go just a little whisper bigger. And we also need a length for them. This needs to be about somewhere about 1/8 of an inch shorter than what this is, because there's the scoop part actually goes down inside there a little bit. Doesn't necessarily make the most sense how they do it, but I'm not the one that makes the kit, so. Calipers. Start out here in the end. Give us a place for our calipers. And then drop over. Should be the right place. but just in case, before we get to fart around a bit, check it. It shouldn't even come close to going over that, and it doesn't. So now we know we can take the whole thing down to that level, and then I'll taper the end to get it to fit. Give it a little taper. And it just barely starts up over that end, so now we should be able to flatten it out. I don't necessarily go for them to be like a pound-on kind of a fit. They could be glued on when it's done. I generally don't. People always ask, how do you clean the stuff? So if you don't glue that on, because there's no way to, you're not going to get a perfectly clean surface in there to actually be able to seal it very well. At least I don't think you do. And we're still a little snug. Just a little bit more. Just looking for dust coming off the tool. And we're still snug back there. If I give it a spin, should show me, yeah, there we go. A little bit of a dark line, a burnished line from the metal. So that's where it's getting tight at. We could also, from there, we could pick up our spindle gouge. You just pick up that cut right behind that line. Go right into the face. Here I'm going to sneak in there, clean up that face because it was cut with a parting tool, so it will not be clean. Also need to clean up this face a bit. This will go right down to the live center. Now it'll probably be loose, but looks like it's still, oh, that's all right. So about 1/8 of an inch. Good check. Would be a good idea. Because these have a little bit of a thing on there. Not quite sure why, but that's just the kit that, this is the kit that I have, so. A lot of the other kits of this style just thread in, or glue in, whichever. So it bottoms out. No real issues. Other thing while here would be to draw a line, a little bit of a line around that ring. So I want to go down to that line. I certainly don't need to worry about these coming undone. The threads are about 1.5 inches long, which kind of makes it a pain because the tap that I have is not quite that long. Actually, it looks like it could use just a little whisker more off. I didn't get quite, left a little ridge right down there at the live center. Normally that's not much of an issue on something like this, but I will spin this around eventually and use a mandrel to hold that, and then the live center at the other end. And that's where it comes into play. I just go for a simple design on these. It's just a simple chamfer on the front. Get down to that line, thereabouts. I think last time I did most of this before I switched it around, but I think this time I'm going to do it just a little bit differently. Sort of still left a little ridge of wood, and that little ridge of wood will probably cause me issues because it will not necessarily compress very well in the mandrel. Just use a knife and cut that little bit off. Doesn't need to be pretty. It's all going to be hidden. So we'll go to the bottle stopper mandrels, what that is. Standard threads. This will get a drawbar in it because eventually we will get rid of the tailstock at the very end. So we don't want it wandering out. But you can see why I don't necessarily do it in this fashion to start with, because this would be a pain to unscrew it to check the fit each time. It's still a little snug at one place, leaving a black mark, but now we can just put a little bit of pressure on the tailstock. Then we can shape it. These blanks are kind of a little short in a way. Not super short, but this way we won't lose so much down here to do it this way. Now, quite enough pressure. Tailstock, there we go. The spinning, but it wasn't spinning very fast. I sort of get them down to the diameter I think I want them at fairly quickly. Just kind of a long, slow paper into that curve. Probably still too fat back here. I have big hands, so I get in trouble usually when I'm making this kind of stuff. I'll be a little bit more gentle on it. It's still picking up some grain there, a couple places. But we're still sort of in the roughing stages, so don't get too alarmed on it. We're going to take this down. Final cuts, I probably will switch over to the spindle gouge. A little less aggressive. Getting close. See if it's still picking the grain up. I'm sure it probably is. Tiny little bits there. That's kind of sandable, but it's more sanding what I want to do. I need to lose about 1/8 of an inch, something thereabouts. Maybe a little bit more. Definitely don't want the hole. Not necessarily ready to totally cut that off yet either. Looks like it. Let's look. Feels like it did, but you never know. No. Chips. 2 places. So wonders of working with some of this curly wood. I guess I could raise it to rest up. Go to the skew and see if it'll cut it clean. Maybe, maybe not. Don't want to cut up in that area, so the height is about right. Still just a little bit. Chips are actually pretty deep. Ridges I can live with, the chips you can't. Ridges sand off quickly, chips not so much. I think that's close enough. I'm always comfortable making the long curves with this view. I should practice more at that. Press a little too high. Go with the little guy. More familiar with the little one than that bigger one. Spindle gouge flies. Feels like that just picked things up like crazy. Makes it feels like it. Nope. Just these, when you're working with the figured wood like that, these ripples when you put your fingers on it when it's spinning, even right there rubbing your fingers over, the ripples are really hard and what's in between is softer. So it kind of throws you for a bit of a curve. So we're going to leave the tailstock up for now. And we'll do some sanding. I'll start with 180 because there's some ripples in there. Get rid of them. And I won't sand out on this curve part very far because if I put 180 grit scratches in end grain on either end, they're kind of difficult to get out. So just sand them with the, maybe get a little further down with 220. Otherwise it'll be 320 and 400. Because this thing will get dyed, so we gotta do a good job sanding where the dye will show every scratch there is. And we're 320, so that's a good place to sort of stop and go with the grain. Even though this is curly, there's still most of the grain still going straight ahead. Because from here we're going to break it free. And then we'll sort of start the dyeing process. we're still at 320, so now we'll hit this very end, which is kind of difficult to get the very end because it's hardly moving. And now we need some gloves. We gotta go get some gloves. I gave my wife choices tonight. I said green, purple, but maybe we'll do the first one purple. If I remember right, I think this purple is really dark. We're going to find out here very directly. And the reason I'm going to start it at 320, because this is only been standard at 320. We're going to go the whole way to 800 eventually. But this will show me that I'm going in the right, sort of in the right track, and it'll leave some, should leave some darker spots. I don't know. It's almost red. It does say purple though. Magenta. That's magenta. It's sort of a red, not a purple. Huh. I don't know, maybe this is going to be the red one instead. Different color red, put it that way. This is also where you get to go through quite a bit of sandpaper. You won't be able to see it on screen, but I can see scratches there, scratches there. So we'll see what 400 does to it. And I really should take that glove off. Just take the one off. It's going to clog the sandpaper up very quickly. A little bit of shellac or something in this. I usually use the shellac as a little bit of a binder in these dies. So until you get that removed, we will go through a couple pieces of sandpaper. Just so happens there's a whole stack of 400 sitting there for some reason. So you can sort of see, if you were going multiple colors, you can see where the softer bits of wood are that the dye has been able to penetrate deeper than others. end grain is just at its end grain, so it's going to soak it in no matter what you do. Of course, up here on this curve is where the scratches were. So I'll make the sandpaper move really quickly across there. It'll help. So you can see all the places that already that are lighter than the rest, which once we get completely finished is what I want. Some places to be lighter than darker. Just not quite right yet. So I'm trying to eliminate the radial scratches, which is kind of troublesome on the end bit down here. Scratches are one thing, but when they're in a line with one another is where they will show. I just want to keep on showing right there. So we didn't seam quite hard enough, where there's still 320 scratches. And it looks like we still need to sand a little bit harder up here. I'm still seeing some of them. Can also slow the speed of the lathe down a little bit more. Gets a little better bite on the sandpaper. Also doesn't make your fingers hot. So now we'll go right to 600. Wow, that was nice and measured. So that's our 600. We'll wipe down with the paper towel. This time we're going to use some alcohol on it, because now we've closed the pores up pretty heavily. So if we put a little alcohol on, we're going to wipe a little bit of that dye off. Should put my glove back on, but we'll be ready. Now this time when we put the dye on, it should really penetrate in. And then we'll work on cutting it back some from there. Kind of a pretty color though. Not a fire engine red. Definitely shows Shows the features of the wood somewhat. First order of business, we'll spin it. Helps it to dry quicker. I'm using a paper towel, and you're going to see it pulls some of the, it'll help pull that shellac off of the surface, because I really don't want that on the surface. Also smoothed up anything out of the ordinary. Now we look for more scratches. Actually, it looks like we're pretty good on that department. Now, if we want these areas to be a little lighter, one way is I just put a little bit of alcohol on the paper towel, and we'll just lightly wipe over some of these areas, and it's going to take that dye off of some of the harder bits to make them lighter. Other way is to actually just sand a little bit once it's dry. This is kind of easier than sanding later. This will have to sit and dry for probably at least an hour or so, because the alcohol has some water in it. So I need all the water to evaporate before because this will get the 3408 super glue finish on it. So it would not like being put on right now. If I put it on right now, it would instantly set up, and that's not what I want it to do. I want it to soak in. Just be careful what you do with the paper towels. They're all laying over the edge of the trash can. You can see it as it's you see it just by right now. If I spin it a little bit, it'll help it dry quicker. Well, I won't smear any of it when I take it off. If your name was Jimmy Clues, he would just light a match to it, but I like my house and my shop, so it's gonna have some pretty good character to it. So we'll take it off of there. Just sit this one off to the side to dry. Like I said, I have another one to do. So there's where it's at so far. Probably try to get the other one done. Time permits, we'll put the finish on that. That's when it'll really show up and shine. Gloves are cheap. I don't usually try and save them for the next one, because the next one's not going to be the same color. Same wood, but not same color. So that's going to be our red. Next one we'll do the green. See whether the green is as bright as what the blue in this particular brand of dye. The blue is a very, very bright blue, which is kind of neat. I like things to be bright in color. I don't really like the muted kind of colors. I mean, if they're going to be colors, they should be bright. Put your face shut down, dummy. Blocks the camera. It's like before, centers. We're going to go between centers. We'll go back to a stub center. And cone center this end, leaving enough room out here so that I can pull that back to check the fit. Maybe this one will be a little bit more creative. Ah, now these are um, ice cream scoop handles. Ice cream scoops today. That's our project of the day. Keep it simple. I have enough bowls, so I sort of need to get caught up on these because I have friends of my wife that want some of these. So probably my favorite tool for going squared around. Very quick, very easy. May not have necessarily been the most friendly to this curly wood, but we're going to see. That don't look like it's doing too bad. Definitely is picking some of it up. There's some stuff that's picked up there. Now this is actually a curly maple, and it's not a softwood, it's hard. This is a hard maple. Just has lots of figure in it. So that's why it likes to pick up the grain, because when it gets the figure to it, the grain's not necessarily running truly in one direction, like it would be if it was other kinds of wood, or just plain maple. So yeah, it's a lot harder to work with. And when you get to the final shaping, I don't need to do anything down there yet. You have to make really nice light cuts. Pay attention. There's, there's even some places right there. Well, that's what you call sharp tools. And plenty of speed to go with it. So yeah, that's the name of that game, is the good sharp tools, proper presentation of the tools. It always helps. And it'll cut clean. So do I still have these should be set for that. This particular ice cream scoop gets this that ferrule that has had in my hand. First order of business, get that set. These calipers, these are a cheap set of calipers, but I make sure that all these corners up here, because most of these kind of calipers, whether they're digital or a normal scale caliper, all come to a sharp point. You need to get rid of them points if you're going to use them for this. So they're going to slide it right over the wood. And if ever sharp, it would dig in, and you'd be getting rather well acquainted with them, and not in a good way, of course. Just give it a little taper on the end. This is the most time-consuming part about the whole project, is getting this ferrule on there to where it wants to fit. So it's just ever so slightly going over that taper. So now we know we're safe. Whoa, not there. Kind of missed the hole. There we go. So we can bring everything down basically to that level. Give it just a little slight taper on the end. See if we can get this done in less than 4 tries. So just see if I can see if it'll leave a mark. Yeah, just you won't be able to see it in the camera. There's just a tiny little mark back there where it went over it. See now if I can find it. So it's right about there is where it went to. So that means we can get my skew in there. Yeah. I can use a skew rather than a parting tool. It's a little bit sort of better in a way. So I want the line to disappear. I still have a line. I don't necessarily need them to fit. I don't want a pressure fit, put it that way. I want them to slide over. If it wobbles a little bit, it wobbles a little bit. Not really too concerned about that either. I need to cut that clean now. But see, those kind of cuts picks up the end grain on pretty much any kind of wood. So we'll take a little slice off of that. To get it perfectly clean down to the middle, not leaving that ridge down there. I also need this end to be perfectly clean, a little bit, maybe even a little undercut. This will go right into the lag center. Hopefully this time it didn't leave a little. Hey Billy, how are you tonight? So that should be good. So I'll mark a line around there. Like I say, I pretty much just do these in a simple, to me simple is good on something like this. Simple design. Yes, I mean, I guess you could get kind of fancy dancy with them, but this is going to go back in the groove. Close enough. So I'll go down so it just erases that pencil line. I'm going to look at it because I don't always get quite what I want with the skew. Just make this taper a little bit longer. I have a hard time getting that to actually go straight. Important part is to make sure it's cut clean, because there is no such thing as sanding end grain, so it has to be cut clean. Not a place for the carbide tools, that's for sure. Just needs to cut nice and clean. So now we go back to our mandrel. The reason I cut this end a little bit, I actually give it a tiny little bit of a concave, but what I find, these were actually cut on the chop saw, so, and grabbed here and drilled, so when you spin it between centers, it's centered, but it is, but it isn't in some ways. If I don't get that parallel, so to speak, of the axis that I had it on, so I've done some of these where I do almost all of it and then put it on this mandrel just to finish this little end, and they can, every once in a while you get one that's out, somehow or another gets pretty far out of kilter, and it will like to wobble. And it's not fun. So back to our shaping. I'll go back to my bowl gouge for that job. I just find it to be easier. Bowl gouge is what I use 3/4 of the time anyhow. Just a little bit of tailstock support. Not perfect, running perfectly true, but we'll true it up right off the bat. Just use our wing of the tool. Basically giving me almost the same cut as what a skew would. It's just a little quicker, a little easier for me. So we know we're going to have a big cove down here. And we're too fat like the other one. We'll trim it down. More about there. Let's see how bad this one's going to do. Yeah, see, it wants to chip it. That's sort of me being a little bit aggressive with it. And probably should go take a tiny little walk, resharpen the bowl gouge. Even though you say we're working on little pieces, we've also cut a couple miles of chips as went across them. So it only takes 2 passes or so on each side. Get it back to a nice, fresh, clean edge. I like my bowl gouge for this stuff. Just by virtue of it allows me to move a little quicker. Also allows me to make a bigger cut. I don't have to make a bigger cut. Take a little bit more of that off. Gonna get the two monkeys to meet in the middle. See whether we have anything that's going crazy. A little bit right there, a little bit right there. That's not as bad as the other one was. It looks a little fatter than the other one. Try one other simple little thing. Switch over to the 40-degree gouge and see whether it, because that's really the same angle as what the spindle gouge would be. See if what it will like that goofy grain. One tiny little chip. Sweeten that up a little bit back there. And that's pretty good. Once again, end grain, so it needs to be cut clean as a whistle, so to speak. Tiny little bit right there. We should go after. Like I left a little ridge in there anyhow. Go from both sides. Meet in the middle. Still left a little picked up crap in the middle. Yeah. One more little try with that. We'll go back to the small spindle gouge. It's kind of like right in the transition point where both of them meet. So I don't know. Don't know which side it actually is, whether you're cutting down this way or coming back this way where it wanted to pick up the grain. Still a tiny bit there, but that's livable and sandable. Get some fresh sandpaper. I'll break our sandpaper, break the glue on the sandpaper. Bend it over the edge a little bit. Drop our speed. Don't want to burn my fingers. We're starting with 180. And now we have a place down here. We're going to remove some material. That's where the little chips were at. Well, looks like we got rid of them. On to 220. Three 20. Soften that edge a little bit. For 100, we're going to hit the end grain. As much of it as we can. Actually, I can bring a tool rest in and get rid of that little bit first.
through center and left that pointy. Put the speed of the lathe back up. Only running about 600 RPMs. Why it looks like I'm moving so slow is because I am. You don't necessarily need the whipping action that you may get with the higher speed in that right there. See if we can get this end done with 400, which you should be able to. It's all cut cleanly, so all we're doing is getting rid of any little ripples. And also stop and sand across the very end, because that is barely moving. Feels like there's a little bump there. That's got it. 600. As we go with it. See whether this one comes out differently. The other one, I dyed it and then finished sanding it. One at 320, 400, and 600. This time we'll go right straight to the end. Make sure I put some alcohol on it to open the pores back up. I will take the time to sand a little bit with the grain, just in case you can any of them little pesky radial scratches in there. Little random orbit, 600. You could do 800 as well if you wanted. Because they will show up whenever you put the dye on, for sure. Let's refill my little bottle, my little spray bottle. Kind of surprised there, I don't know, a week or two ago maybe it was. I'd ran out of alcohol. And I was like, well, it's just like everything else this year that has gone up twofold, threefold, but I was surprised. I actually think it was either the same price or even less than what it was last I bought it. I'll get me some gloves while that dries. This one's going to be green. Looks like I've already used green a little bit.
Hopefully this isn't, yeah. So I thought it was going to be a nice, should be a nice bright green. Yeah, that's why I wanted to wobble the water. The drawbar was starting to come loose. It was probably starting to walk out of the Morris taper. Wondering why when I released the tailstock it sort of wobbled a little bit. That's probably it. It's got some dark and light to it, a little bit. More when we lighten it up a bit more though. So that's our die coat. Now we'll go back and use some alcohol and a paper towel and wipe over it, which will wipe off some of the lighter areas to make them lighter. Darker areas won't change much. Even if I would sand it a little bit once it's dry, the dark areas stay dark. The light areas, as the animal finish, will get a little bit lighter. I don't know. Not really impressed with that green, but I was thinking it was going to be more of a brighter green. It'll still look interesting once this dries. We can put some super glue on it. The other one that we did earlier should be dry. So we'll switch back to that one and put the 3408 on it. And that probably will be, yep, it will be the end of the night. Not sure whether I need to go to the grocery store yet or not. Probably do. Gonna burnish it a little bit. Really shouldn't be doing that with gloves on now. How much more it pulled off of there. Doesn't really tell you on the bottle of this stuff, but my guess is most of them use a little bit of shellac in there as a binding agent. So I really sort of want to get as much of that off as I can, because the super glue don't necessarily get along with that. That'll be alright. Little lights and little darks. So we'll set that one off to dry. We'll go back to our magenta one, which is dry. Looking at my hands to make sure I do have green dye on there, but I'm not going to use any more alcohol in it. From here, I might sand a little bit with 800 before we put the finish on it. Because all the dye and the alcohol have a tendency to raise the grain a bit anyhow. And we'll just lightly go over it, which is going, when I lightly go over it, you'll see that the lighter spots will become a little bit lighter, which makes it show up a little better. Some of the places like there on this flat out end grain, we can lighten that up a bit.
not going to get real light, but lighter. And you could just keep sanding until you get it to the shade that you want. If you want it lighter, then make it lighter. Like I say, sanding like this, you're only really getting to the parts that are already light, because that's the harder bits. I think that's going to be good enough. Give that a wipe. You can also lighten it up with the alcohol. I think I did a little bit of that on this one originally. Do a little bit of a same thing with the alcohol. It just lightens up some areas. It'll lighten up some of these areas up in here that's sort of end grain, but not really. I think I like that. Now we'll go to a little bit of 3408. Wipe my hands off. And we don't, I was going to say, normally use a little piece that fell in there, but we really don't need it for this. I just fold this over in half. Gives me enough of a pad. This we'll put on while it's spinning, very slowly. As slow as what the lathe will go, which is like 140 RPMs, something like that. Parfix 3408, slow setting super glue. Put plenty on the paper towel to get started, and I will literally dribble it on the top as I go along because I want to saturate it. It has a 40-second delay on setting, so it's going to allow it to soak into the pores of the wood, fill all the pores up, and not really be sitting on the surface when we're done, because I will wipe this dry. If you wanted that high gloss plastic look on this stuff, you go to the 3460, which is designed to be able to put multiple coats on. It actually has a little bit longer of a set time, but it's also made to be able to do the multiple coats. This 3408 will not do multiple coats. It will sit on the surface, and you can see it's still pulling some of the color back because it reactivated the dye somewhat. It's also should have left this go overnight. As soon as I touch that and flip that paper towel over, the paper towel is rather warm. That's an indication that the super glue is already setting up. So the moisture that was left behind from the alcohol in the dye has some water in it, of course, and that hasn't all evaporated. The super glue sets up in the presence of moisture. So if you have a crack in a piece of wood, don't put super glue in that crack because it's going to set up before it ever goes anywhere because of all the moisture. If the wood is wet or relatively wet. So that's it. One and done. One coat and done. We'll activate it a little bit. I don't really need to. I have humidity here. It would set up all by its lonesome. This way it just gets it done quicker. The green one we're not going to touch tonight.
because I know this has had way longer than the green one. So just best to be patient. 'Cause, I mean, you're done. I'll come back some other day. Maybe I'll wait till next weekend. Give that a buff, put it together, and it's done. Ready to send on its merry little way. I don't know. That magenta's kind of a neat color. Yeah, it works. Anybody have any interesting comments on it? Like, dislike? These two will get this style of ice cream scoop. I think they call it the Hawk Point or something like that. Pretty heavy duty. I just call it an ice cream scoop. Um, they're Wood River from Woodcraft. Only problem with the ice cream scoops is just like some of the other kits. They're not very inexpensive. So if you're making them to try and sell them, they're kind of a bit of a challenge because I think that kit retails for over $20, maybe like more like $24, I think, 22 or $24. So you have that and a piece of wood, so you're looking at pretty much a $25 investment. So, you know, for me, I'm probably lucky if I get. I usually put 35 on them and hope for the best, but I only make a couple of these a year. That's if I make 3 or 4 of these, that's pretty much good for the 3 or 4 craft shows that I do. So that's enough. But they're an easy project to do. I actually teach this as a class at Wood. Very simple project for somebody, basically just getting started in wood turning or whatever, because it is spindle work. So other than that, we are going to call it a night. And next week, I'm not sure. We're having a family picnic on Saturday, so probably put it off till Sunday. Come out Sunday evening and do a live stream then. So until then, you all have a wonderful week, and hopefully it's not too hot where you're at. It certainly has been quite hot here this week. It has cooled off a little bit this weekend, but it's supposed to get back in up in the 80s, low 90s again next week. So not a fun week, but it is what it is. So till next week, y'all have fun.